Peaceful Tomorrows, a national organization of more than 200 relatives of victims of the 9/11 attacks, said on April 4th of 2011, as families of those who were murdered on that day, we have waited nearly 10 years to see those who committed these savage criminal acts to be brought to justice. Military commissions have been embroiled in a series of legal challenges, and we fully expect that this inadequate alternative to our well-tested federal court system will continue to delay our pursuit of justice. We stand with the victims of the 9/11 attacks and the 24 experts that we cited in our 1IC in believing that military commissions are an inefficient and ineffective method of achieving justice. I'll be demonstrating exactly how and why we should value justice throughout my speech, but first, let's examine the idea of justice itself. Now, in the last speech, the negative team argued that we must prove first two things: that there is a harm in the status quo and that we can provide an improvement in the status quo. I'll be showing you that throughout my speech, but looking specifically at the goal of national security provided by the negative team, they argued that we ought to prefer it because it's important for the United States and it's important for us to protect our country. Now, there's one reason why we believe national security should not be a priority in today's debate round, and it's because national security is not threatened. In today's debate round, we're concentrating specifically on justice and showing how justice is harmed in the status quo. Simply talking about national security is not relevant for today's debate round. I'll be showing you why throughout my speech. Now, the reason we believe you ought to prefer justice in today's debate round is because it is relevant to ensuring terrorists receive due punishment in due time. That's essentially our standard of justice as we explained in our 1AC, ensuring that terrorists receive due punishment in due time. Now let's begin by looking at the negative team's points and showing how at the end of the day, these points actually don't support the negative team's case. Now, the negative team came with the assumption that it is important for us to have a necessary balance, that in some way and in some form, military commissions are deemed necessary. But this is not entirely the case. David Glazier, a professor of law at Loyola Law School, stated in 2012, quote, claims that the commissions offer legitimate practical advantages over federal trials are mistaken. This is the stance of the affirmative team in today's debate round. When we use military commissions, when the negative team believes that we use military commissions, they believe that we have some sort of advantage over federal courts. Yet this is something that they have not demonstrated in today's debate round. Now I'd like to respond to that significance point with another point in intent versus reality. We believe the intentions of military commissions were to provide an advantage over federal court in some way and in some form. But reality has shown that after 19 years, they have not been able to prosecute terrorists from 9/11, one of the worst terrorist attacks in American history, effectively. And this really demonstrates the injustice allowed in military commissions and how they have been both inefficient and ineffective. One of the first points that the negative team brought up, arguing that military commissions are necessary, had to do with the steep learning curve in courts. My first response to this is simply speculation. They brought up a piece of evidence citing the American Bar Association, which stated, several discussants were concerned with cases never pursued in Article III courts and the potential problems that could arise. This is simply speculation on behalf of the negative team, and they never actually provided concrete examples of a steep learning curve. Now, my second response is military commissions know better. No advantage through military commissions. Michael Paradas, a senior attorney for the Department of Defense, reported in 2017, quote, as a practical matter, military judges, people who practice military law, do not have experience handling complex cases. The military justice system works very well in the military. Now, when we're looking at terrorists and when we're looking specifically at terrorists, we believe that the best method and the best system is using federal courts. I'll be showing you how by looking at the negative team's next point, examining the argument that classified evidence is harmed when we use federal courts. Now, my first response to this is simply speculation. They never actually brought up any concrete evidence to support this point. Now, my next response to this has to do with the argument that I cited from David Glazier earlier, talking about how there are no advantages through federal courts, military commissions. David Glazier goes on to say in the same piece of evidence that claims these assertions that commissions offer legitimate practical advantages are misleading. Battlefield evidence collection, like any overseas evidence gathering, is exempt from Fourth Amendment mandates. Commission's rules for classified evidence are based on the Classified Information Procedures Act, or CIPA, that has been applied by Article III courts in dozens of terrorism cases since 9/11. So the commissions have no legitimate advantage in either of these respects. Simply put, military commissions and federal courts use the same procedure for using classified information. And if the negative team has any problem with that, this is something that is not gained by using military commissions. Now, their next point was that terrorists are simply being held in Guantanamo Bay, and so there's no problem here. And our response is injustice. If we look at our standard of justice, seeing that terrorists ought to receive due punishment in due time through trial, we can see that military commissions fail our standard. Again, after 19 years, they have not convicted 9/11 terrorists. And in the past, since 2001, they've only convicted 8 terrorists effectively. And again, this does not demonstrate justice. We've shown how they do not have due punishment in due time. Now, they went on to argue about our first subpoint under justice, talking about efficiency, and argue that our point under there does not apply. Now, my first response to this is speculation. They stated that the evidence we talked about does not apply because, well, there's only a certain amount of terrorists in military commissions, and that military commissions try the high-level terrorists. Now, my second response has to do with 360. My partner brought up the example earlier about 360 terrorists tried on high-level charges in federal courts. Now, those charges include terrorist acts abroad against United States nationals, use of weapons of mass destruction, conspiracy to murder overseas, and providing material support to terrorist or foreign terrorist organizations, or receiving military-style training from foreign terrorist organizations. 360 defendants in federal courts have been tried under this. But even if you don't buy that piece of evidence and believe that there's only a few dozen high-level terrorists tried in federal courts, this still concedes the point that federal courts are capable of trying high-level terrorists and have done so in the past. Now, looking specifically at this, we can see that military commissions do not have any advantages over federal courts. But what are the advantages of using federal courts, ensuring that we take care of the disadvantages of using military commissions? The first advantage that I'd like to look at today is that of international cooperation. International cooperation. Now, William Finnegan, a reporter for the New Yorker, said in May 15th of 2017, quote, "It is clear that military commissions at Guantanamo have failed miserably. Many successful terrorism prosecutions in recent years, moreover, have followed extraditions, in other words, transfers of criminals from other countries to the United States that would not have occurred if Guantanamo and its military commissions had remained an option. Our main counterterrorism partners, including the United Kingdom, Canada, and Germany, refuse to provide evidence or to cooperate with extradition requests unless a suspect is to be tried in a federal court." If we want to ensure justice, if we want to ensure that criminals extradited to the United States will be guaranteed trial and justice within the United States, we ought to use federal courts. But the second reason that we believe we actually provide an advantage has to do specifically with justice. As we've shown throughout our speeches, justice is best upheld when we ensure due punishment in due time. This is something that military commissions have failed to do. They can only try terrorists under military law, leading to 32 trials. The federal courts can try terrorists under both military law and criminal law, leading to the advantage of 4,000 charges. This is just one example of how federal courts are more capable and more effective when it comes to trying terrorists. Thank you so much.